Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the latest episode of Baked in the Cake. I am here once again with DJ Castilleja and Kyle Schumacher. Some people may not know the difference. Kyle, wave your hand. Okay, cool. That's Kyle. Because the video doesn't record our names, is what I realized last time. So, and of course, there's DJ. And we are here to discuss some interesting issues. Particularly, I want to talk about price gouging. And it's very much an idea that's baked in the cake that price gouging is one of the evils of capitalism. And everyone say capitalism has failed us because of price gouging. But something also relevant to price gouging is just libertarian solutions to pandemic problems. How does a free market do what we think we need government to do is another very good question.
But it's relevant because in the COVID, as the COVID pandemic came, one of the things that I do in the background is I sell on eBay. And I have to say that when it first started, it was like the next to last week in February, I actually purchased a mask, an N95 mask on Amazon. It never came in because it was coming from China, and they eventually gave me my money back because it was supposed to arrive till like April 15th, and it never came. And so they finally just gave me my money back. But being a online seller myself, it crossed my mind that to go buy hand sanitizer and masks even before like it really hit. And so things like that, I sell on eBay, as kind of a side business that I have, and it crossed my mind, and so it is relevant. I never did it, but I'm glad I didn't because everyone that did got hit pretty hard.
But so. What was your point again, DJ?
The reason why it's relevant to today is because price gouging. I mean, there's lots of news stories.
Oh, you saw people price gouging on eBay, is what you're saying?
Oh yeah, there's news stories about people that for Amazon, for example, there are the people selling masks, the N95 masks, really high price, and Amazon started taking those ads down, and so did eBay. eBay came out real early and said that they're not going to allow ridiculous pricing on N95 masks and hand sanitizer. And so they came in as a business and actually started taking down those ads.
So that is one free market solution, but I don't agree with it. I think that we should allow price gouging to be committed at its fullest because it is a free market solution, so I don't want to argue with it. If you don't like, if you think, we need the government to come tell companies to not price gouge, even regular companies will regulate that on their own websites. eBay won't let them price gouge.
I know your opinion, Derek. I want to know what Kyle's opinion is because as we discussed last week, we had this whole discussion already, and in my mind was changed. And I'm a free market person. I believe in free markets. And so for me to say that I didn't agree with price gouging, I mean, I knew I was being kind of hypocritical there and what I was saying.
Well, remember, my opinion, but the listeners don't know my opinion. But we haven't defined price gouging yet. But I think Kyle can do it without me, and I haven't heard Kyle talk about really what price gouging is and why libertarians think it's okay. So Kyle, what is price gouging and why do libertarians love it?
Well, normally I don't think that libertarians love it because lots of times when it happens, it's during an emergency, right? Because somebody needs something immediately and another person has it and knows that they're desperate for it. But so price gouging is kind of a derogatory term in that sense where it's trying to be demeaning, but it's obviously increasing.
Price gouging really doesn't exist in a free market. It's just the price of something.
Yeah, but I would say that it's generally used in an emergency situation where somebody either already has or foresees that there's going to be a shortage of something. They stock up on it, knowing that they can severely mark up the price.
Well, like here in Texas, like when a hurricane comes, there's always concern that lumber is going to go up because people are boarding their homes, and water, price of water bottles goes up, and then people start, stripping the shelves from the local stores.
Well, and another example of that is I moved here the weekend after Hurricane Harvey hit Texas. So we are in San Antonio, so we got a lot of rain here, but obviously Houston and Galveston got hit very hard. So I drove in with a U-Haul, and I have a minivan on a trailer in the back. And so I was driving it from Portland, Oregon, so 2,000 miles or something. I decided, I was like, well, I'm going to empty out the gas in my minivan so it's not just full of gas. I don't know. I didn't know if that helped with gas mileage or not on the drive over, but that's what I did, right? So I get into the U-Haul that's in San Antonio, and I get the van lowered down, and I said, hey, where's the nearest gas station? They're like, oh, it's just a half mile down the road, but good luck. You're not going to get anything there. There's a gas shortage. I was like, what? And they're like, yep, Hurricane Harvey. They said there might be a gas shortage, which almost became prophetic. And so gas was, my van was on empty. I drove it to my in-laws and parked it there for a whole week. And there was not gas enough to get it for, and then a week later, people had stocked up enough, weren't driving enough, that that my wife was able to go and get gas in it. So, but they didn't allow gas. They didn't allow the gas prices to go up, right? Now, here's where I would say that there's the benefit of allowing price gouging. We'll just use that. Is because it helps people to reallocate resources to where they're most needed. All right. So a lot of people heard that there might be a gas shortage, and they drove all 3 cars that they might own and filled them all up. Right. And then they brought in their own gallons of gas tanks and filled those up. So they had all this gas on. Well, the gas stations could have done one of 2 things, which what eventually happened with the Purell and all that stuff through eBay. The gas stations, could have raised the prices to say, they could have done 3 things. And it's a mixture of both. They could have just raised the prices and said, fine, $10 a gallon. That's that. They could have said, no, you're only allowed to fill up 1 vehicle, or they could limit how many gallons that you get, or they could say, look, we'll let you get 10 gallons at the regular, $2 a gallon, but anything after that, you're gonna have to pay $10 a gallon for. And so that, there's different ways that they could have privately decided how they're gonna use their resources. And that's, again, I don't think you need the government to enforce that, because somebody has a product, they want to sell it, and they want people to continue to come to their location to buy. So if they get all bought out of gas, then they're also not going inside the gas station to buy whatever it is, gum and all the profit that they make off of gum.
Well, I guess this is why I think price gouging, they give it the term price gouging, and even on Fox News, I don't even watch the news, but my wife was for a while. She had it on when COVID first started, and we haven't been watching it here lately.
I watch a lot of news.
You watch a lot of news?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm sorry. And the way they talked about people price gouging, it was with disgust. I mean, venom in their mouth. I mean, those dirty, low life pieces of, this terrible. And I'm like, well, what determines the price of something? There's not really price gouging ever. Because the market's going to regulate itself. The market's self-regulating. If they're charging way too much, then they're going to make adjustments because they're not going to sell any. So when you just take in supply and demand, that's what determines a price. And whenever a crisis hits, there is an unusual amount of demand for certain products, which means the price should go up if the supply is the same. And we're okay with gas prices going down. A lot of us are. We don't hear too much complaining about that because it benefits us. I don't like paying a lot for gas. But we aren't okay with paying more for toilet paper instead, even though it is a more rare resource it's worth more at that point. So we need to ask ourselves, what determines the price of something other than supply and demand? Because we still have to put a number on it, right? So one of the last things that determines the price of something is how much someone's willing to pay. So even if let's say it's a very rare thing and the demand is even substantial, but you're still charging more than what someone's willing to pay, you're going to lower that down to the price that you want to sell it at. And that's the way things are priced all the time, unless the government comes in and price fixes something. And when we interfere in that, we create more issues. So if we don't allow price gouging, people buy more than what they need. And then the people who really need that can't get that product. And does that make sense? Okay, we good? All right, DJ.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I think one of the arguments about kind of the price fixing thing was possibly prices getting too high for people who can't afford it to get a hold of it.
Well, so the reason I like price gouging over other types of regulating of how much people can buy is, say I'm a family of 8 and I go to the grocery store today and we're just going to hope that there is meat there. We're hoping there's meat there, and say there is. Oh, yay, that's good. Well, you're limited to 1 pound of ground beef. Yeah, that's not enough to feed my family today. 1 pound of ground beef isn't going to do it. And I would have rather paid higher prices for that ground beef and bought what I needed instead. Or a family of 8 that needs toilet paper and they're limiting everyone to a 4-pack. That was happening at HEB. You got 1 4-pack of toilet paper. Now that might be enough for a little bit for a family of 8 even, but they're going to have to go to the store more often. And that goes against what we're in this current situation. Now I have to go out into public more because of that. And if we just rose the price up, then I can go buy what I need. And you're saying, DJ, is what about the poor people? Well, in America, the poorest people spend the most money on cigarettes and lottery tickets.
Okay, well, that's a generalization. So,
we're already talking. You're generalizing our poor people.
Yeah, but you're equating poor people with habits.
Well, that's who buys those things.
Well, you may be right. Okay, you may be right, but it's that is kind of generalizing the idea of poor people.
No, I'm just
buying cigarettes and lottery tickets.
Rich people don't buy lottery tickets.
All rich people.
A lot of rich people don't buy lottery tickets.
Okay, well, I'm just talking about generalizations. That's all.
How are we defining rich?
Well, if you're in America, you're already pretty dang rich. Is kind of my point.
Okay, so
we're making a rule that affects everyone, right? Rules that affect everyone, like we can't buy all this. Because we don't want the very poor people to buy it, but that's already a small section that can't afford it for that.
Derek, you have made an assumption that I don't think is accurate, at least not here in Texas, and I haven't heard it across the country. The pound of ground beef that you can buy is purely privately regulated right now.
Oh, well, yeah, you're right. It's not privately regulated.
Oh, okay. So there's a government order that requires the grocery stores to limit their ground beef to 1 per family, 1 pound per family.
Oh, no. I thought you were talking about like the price. You said price of ground beef, didn't you?
Sorry. I meant if you're going to go into Walmart and buy ground beef they'll only allow 1 pound per family. But
Yeah,
that's
let's say that. That's one rule. Yeah.
But that's Walmart's rule. It's not a government regulation.
Okay.
No, I'm asking you. You are putting forth this premise,
Okay.
and I'm saying that they are price gouging you in a different way.
Oh, well, I'm saying
To you, purposefully and privately, without any sort of government interference.
Okay, I missed some of that. What my point was, I prefer regular price gouging than product purchase limits.
Do you mind as long I know what one you prefer, but as long as the government is not stepping its foot in and making you sell it for a certain price or requiring you to limit it to a certain amount.
As long as it's voluntary, I'm okay with it. The company can do whatever they want. I think they shouldn't do that. I think it still hurts people.
How you would run it would be different, which is completely understandable. You would go, look, I'm willing to pay $100 for this 1 pound of ground beef, and I'll pay $1,000 to get 10 of these.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that I think limiting quantities hurts people in a lot of different ways, just like that wouldn't happen if you just did price gouging, if you allowed what we would call,
if you increase the price.
Do what?
If you just increase the price, they're limiting supply. It's the same principle.
Well, kind of. So people won't buy. So if I go to the store here, I think I'm figuring this out. If I go to the store, and this is a real thing that was told to me, and they said I went to the store the other day, and they said that you could only have 4 loaves of bread. So I just went ahead and bought 4. I don't know when the next time is I'm going to get it. Well, that person didn't need 4 loaves of bread. That's a lot of bread. Bread goes bad it'll go bad before they finish it all. And this happened to me when I went to Sam's Club. I went to go buy beef, and there was a limit of 3. And I was like, oh man, I should get 2. And I usually only buy 1, and it's actually like 6 pounds of beef, but I usually only get 1. But it made me want to buy the limit. It made me want to buy 3. It kind of it makes me want to buy more than I need.
You ran into the panic, but it reminds me of, have you all?
I did.
A Wonderful Life?
No.
Oh man, it's great. And just let me say this: fractional reserve banking is not good, but he has a savings and loan business, right?
Okay.
And he has a certain amount of money, and it's 1929 or 32. I don't know. It's one of the times where the market's going crazy, and there's a run on the banks, and so they all run to the savings and loan, and they all want their money, and so he convinces them not to take all of their money out at one time, but to just take what they need for that particular week. Now, one Scrooge, it's like, no, I'm going to take all the money. Give me, I'm owed $300. Give me my $300. Now, mind you, this is 1929 or something like that. So
there's a lot of money.
Yeah. So then a gal comes in. The next gal's like, can I get $17? That's what I need to get by for the next week or whatever, right? So, and then it set the standard. So you probably should have just self-regulated.
I did. I did not buy 2. But what I'm saying is that whenever we do that in our stores, it kind of creates a panic in people, and they start buying more than what they need because they're there. And if fear mongers a little bit with the best intentions, it's not like they're obviously not trying. They're trying to get people to not buy as much, but I think it has the opposite effect. That's why I don't like that. If it didn't kind of make people think, oh, I'm only going to be able to get 2, then I'm not. If they think they're only going to be able to get 2, they're going to go buy 2 when they usually would have bought 1.
Let me also jump in with DJ's argument and build upon it, because it is more to give credit to people who are trying to prevent shortages, which I think that price gouging can help prevent shortages. But to give credit to that, they'll go, look, Kyle, if gas hits $10 a gallon, you will probably still be able, that's not going to put you out. And not only that, you will probably still be able to afford to go fill up all of your vehicles, right? And let's say I don't have 3, but let's say I had 3 vehicles and I filled them all up, whatever, and I'd be able to afford that. Okay. Whereas people are on a lower economic strata, not necessarily poor, but they're just whatever. Because of that, I will go and deplete the supply that's necessary. And so it's not only that they can't afford it, they might be able to afford $10 or a gallon or something like that, but it's going to still deplete the supply. So the price would have to go up so high that when they do go to purchase the gas, it's more than $10 a gallon. It's actually now at $50 a gallon.
Well, so are you playing devil's advocate, or are you trying to are you unintentionally contradicting yourself?
No, I was trying to play devil's advocate.
Okay. I was seeing if you really believed that. Because the pricing going up is what discourages people. Even say I have $1 million and I go into the store and I need eggs and I just want a dozen eggs, and those eggs are priced at $50. Just by principle, I'm not going to buy those eggs for that price. I know they're not worth that. And from historical prices, and if they're all because of a shortage, if that's what they cost, and I need eggs, and everywhere is pricing it that much, just because I hate the price that I'm paying, I'm only going to buy one. I do not think. And that's a little bit anecdotal, but that's what we're also assuming when prices raise, is that people aren't going to buy as much. Not necessarily always because they don't have enough money. But
so let me ask you: do you think it's a marketing ploy to say 4 loaves of bread is your limit?
I don't think it is. I think it's with good intention.
Okay.
I mean, it is a free market solution that's supposed to help people get access to things. But I think just regular price gouging would do the job. And
so you have no problem.
People's hands.
You have no problem with like private businesses, or
Yes.
Not private business, but businesses in general defining their own rules.
Well, and I think what Kyle said earlier was actually a good point. Because not everything, the way businesses generate money with the price of gas and gas stations, if they want to limit how much you can buy, that might be a smart thing, because if I'm filling up 3 vehicles, I'm just getting gas. Well, gas stations don't make very much money on the gas. They make all their money from people going inside and buying stuff. So they still want to give more people gas, and that'll stay on, in public opinion. And they'll stay good in public opinion. People respect this business. If the general consensus that price gouging is bad, it might make more economic sense for them to not raise the prices too much and kind of give into that, because people will stop shopping there.
Now, has the government done anything capping prices that you know of so far?
Well, they cracked down on people doing this. Like they made
was that private industries doing that?
No,
or
the
like
government.
Amazon?
The government came in and did not allow a couple guys, hustlers, if you might call them, who bought a whole bunch of sanitizer. Yeah. And they said at first they said you just can't sell it, which is really bad, because now they have it all. And then they made them donate it, is what happened. But that's asset forfeiture, and that was their own property either way.
Okay, I didn't know if that was government enforced, or
I believe
if it was like Amazon saying, no, we're not going to allow you to sell it, or they would have to, sell it at a loss.
I believe that was the local government, state or local.
There's a couple of that happened in Washington, where I believe that the government did prevent them from selling it. But also, what happened was that the individual kind of made a spectacle of it, and then he made his location known. I'm not saying that it was right that the government went in and did what they did, but he was kind of like blah blah blah.
He could have been smarter.
And I can't remember how many thousands of dollars of toilet paper a guy bought from a Walmart somewhere, and he wanted to go return it, and Walmart's like, nope, we're not taking it back. And now he's got, I don't know, $10,000 worth of toilet paper.
But that's a business, right?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. You know, he anticipated something, and he didn't know that eBay would block him, and everybody else probably was blocking him. And, you know, he might have figured out a different way to do it, to say, hey, if you want toilet paper in my neighborhood, come by and pick it up, and I'll, you know, maybe he only gets to make a markup of $1 or $2 or $5, but he probably still could have sold off. The thing, Derek, I want to point out is your anecdote was about a non-durable good, right? Eggs will go bad eventually.
Okay.
Toilet paper is a durable good. It will last. So you might say to yourself, I don't know how long this is going to last, and I want to stock up on this stuff. So yes, although, you know, a roll of toilet paper is generally 10 cents, now each roll of toilet paper is priced at $2, and so therefore you buy a pack. I don't know what the price is.
Well, I didn't pick eggs like I did pick bread because it's a perishable good, and it's stupid to stock up on bread. And people did it, is what's crazy. But I didn't pick eggs that way. I think I made the point with DJ earlier. I used toilet paper as an example, so I think it still applies.
Yeah, I heard you. I don't know what happened to my screen there. Yeah, but eggs aren't durable. So I think toilet paper is a proper one to use, and somebody might be motivated if they think that something's going to happen that long. Now, I disagree with that, but that is an argument that they're making. It is something that you'll have to overcome. You can use anecdotal evidence, but you can also use the theories that we've already discussed. The prices going up, the quantities being limited. Again, because Walmart or H-E-B or a store is going to say, we actually have this product in stock for you. It's going to be limited, but it's going to still bring people in to buy that other stuff. And another reason to not necessarily encourage price gouging, but not to have the government come in and limit it, is let's say that we needed oil or gas to actually be brought in from different locations. I think a lot of our gas during Hurricane Harvey comes from Houston. I think. I don't know. I'm just making. If it doesn't, let's just make it up. It comes from there, and all that stuff is all of a sudden locked there. It can't travel because of the flooding and the hurricane and stuff. Now it might be an incentive for somebody to drive all the way from Wyoming or whatever with gas to here, but that's obviously going to cost them more money to do it. So that's another reason why prices will go up in a time of emergency, because the cost of production, so to speak, has increased, and you have to incentivize somebody enough with a profit to provide this needed good to them.
Well, I think what you're talking about is the self-regulation of the market. So when prices are that high, there's going to come in competition that says I can undercut that and make money, and people will buy from me instead. But that doesn't happen overnight, is what people don't like, because a crisis happens and we have had the same toilet paper. The way we buy toilet paper is the same all the time, and it needs a little bit of time to self-regulate. Am I wrong?
Well, yeah, but I am trying to point out the different types of self-regulation that occurs within an economy based off of these different examples and how they might interplay with each other.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's make it a little game here, because some predictions. Okay. Tyson Foods comes out and they're having to close down plants because of the coronavirus. So there's news articles out there, and it may be the fear of the media, and we know how good that is, that there might be a shortage on meat. Any predictions on that? They're saying that it might happen.
I had one of my friends called me when that happened, because he owns a restaurant, and this is what he told me. He said, Derek, you have to go buy all the beef you can right now. He goes, the price is just going to go way up. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Because last time he had insider information like that, and last time that happened, He was completely wrong. He said, this is going to cause the price of beef to skyrocket, this and this and this. And it was some other weird thing like this, that the government came in and shut down a large producer of beef. And so I didn't even believe it.
That's one large producer of beef.
Oh, it's a big one, man.
I get it, but not during an emergency situation. So in this emergency situation, it's already been privately regulated. The stores already only allow you to buy a certain amount of meat.
Well, actually, they haven't been limiting me lately. I went to the store or at Sam's Club. I could have bought as much meat as I wanted, tons. And it was a great price. So
that's possible, and they might have their supply chains functioning like stronger now. And now I bet you though that whoever's watching the different stocking supplies of whatever it is, whoever's in charge of the meat supply within the store is watching the purchasing and consumption that's coming in, because they don't want to have happen what happened before with the shelves being emptied again.
Well, even just a news article or just a news report causes fear and causes people to go buy.
Yeah.
I remember the day like toilet paper became scarce. Like that morning, I had gone to it was a work day. I had gone to HEB to get some breakfast from I think I was buying maybe it was lunch. I was buying like a sushi thing.
Yeah.
And everything was just fine. By that evening after work, like there was a run on the stores. It was crazy. And I saw fake news articles, viral posts being given to everybody that there's going to be a shortage on all this stuff. And, one of my relatives was telling me to go and go stock up on food because there's not going to be any food left on the shelves. And that was completely false. It was a false article. But even just the fear, causes the run on the supplies.
There's something about the supply chain that people don't like, and I don't like it either. In a modern day time, the way that our grocery stores and things are stocked is that people buy just what they need. And the second that people want to be prepared, they completely run out because the market is arranged around people going in America. You buy a fridge full of food, that food goes bad. Then the next week you go buy an entire fridge full of food again. And we're used to that. And we're used to always having that food there. And in times like this, it's scary. And it reminds us that it kind of takes, one or two bad days. And we kind of see how fragile we are, even in our supply chain. Does that make sense? And people get scared of that, and that's what makes it even worse, honestly.
Well, I actually think that the free market has shined during this time.
I think it has.
Partly because all of a sudden governors, mayors, and states and even the federal government have deregulated several things to make sure that there was enough stuff that's there, which makes you think, oh, look what's going on here. And so I also think that, and Gene and I talked about this, and I mean, the question is, how much food should you have stored up? Because what Gene and I have done for the last several years is have enough water and food where if we were like cut off like that, prior to this, we would be fine for 3 straight weeks, which is not a lot of time. But my thought process was, if we can't buy food after 3 weeks, then we're in a much worse situation and the world's like ending.
You better go fishing.
What?
Fishing and hunting.
Well, so what's interesting is that if you are talking about that, like food supplies, people might really consider, and this will put a lot of people out of business actually, but a lot of farmers is if you have a small garden for your house and just in your backyard, you can grow more food than your family can eat. it does not take much to, when it comes to fruits and vegetables, or not all fruits because they grow on trees a lot of times, but vegetables, it doesn't take much for you to be able to provide for yourself. Does it make sense?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I think our supply chain is fine, but imagine if people after this go, oh, that was not fun. I did not like that. And so if they prepare themselves a little bit better, you're going to have to buy durable foods that aren't so great, right? You're going to buy some canned food, some stuff that you might not generally eat. And then you store it up, and whether it's 3 weeks, 3 months, something like that, or, some people obviously go for years, and they're like, we're ready to go for several years. We have spaceman food.
Well,
Either way, if you at least have something stored up, then you can live on after that, the weekly, I'm going to go to the grocery store, get what we need, because that actually does make a lot of sense to not buy more than what you need, as long as you're using it properly. You said everything goes bad. Well, Gina's pretty good at making sure she uses things up.
Yeah.
And I think a lot more families do that than what you might think.
Well, what I was saying is that if you really want a sustainable food source, and it'll even be better for you, you'll get like homegrown food, would be, growing your own food is one solution. And so that's all I was saying.
You guys want to hear a great, and by great I mean terrible, Supreme Court case during the Great Depression?
Well, is it going to lead us into what was it? Just libertarian solutions to pandemics?
Well, I think so. Let me explain.
I think we need to transition to that. So let's transition with your story.
All right. So Wickard v. Filburn. Wickard v. Filburn is the name of the case. If anybody wants to look it up, Supreme Court case. What happens is I think it's Filburn is a wheat farmer, and there's regulations on how much wheat you can grow and sell to anybody. So he grows and sells his allotted amount. But what he also does is he has his own private stock, so that he grows and sells wheat to other folks, but then he's keeping wheat for himself. So let's say that it's 100 pounds per, whatever it is that he can sell out of his fields for wheat, right? And he goes, now, but for myself, I'm going to grow an extra 5 pounds or whatever. So you can sell 20,000 pounds worth of wheat. I don't know how you price wheat, but he goes, I'm going to save 5 pounds a week for my family and just feed them out of that. So the Supreme Court says that the constitutional allows the federal government to regulate that amount of food, of wheat that he's growing. They're saying, no, you are still exceeding the limit, even though you're not selling it to anybody and you're only using it for your own private consumption. That leads me to Libertarian Solutions, because that's clearly and ill libertarian. And it made it worse. Him being able to grow his own food was actually a benefit, and is a benefit to all. And him being able to supply food to others is a benefit to all as well. So that it just has a lot to do with, because clearly they were dealing with shortages, and not even shortage. They weren't even dealing with shortages. They were fixing the supply of what could be produced because it was so cheap. They actually were throwing away food because nobody was able to buy it, which is actually terrible because they also had food lines. Anyway, it's interesting read, and it's pretty terrible how they decided it.
Some people do think that they use these things like pandemics and hurricanes to say this is why we can't have libertarianism. That the libertarian viewpoints are so stupid because what do they do whenever something bad happens?
Yeah, why don't you clarify that point, Derek? What about libertarianism is
because we
complain about?
Well, we need Big Brother to come save us with public funds when a hurricane happens, or this or that happens, so for this particular the hurricane, I have a different example of how libertarianism works during hurricanes. But so for this pandemic, it's even more obvious than other issues, and if anything proves libertarianism right, is that the government knows that the best thing to do to get this country healthy again when something bad happens is to get out of the way. Let the free market do what it does and deregulate it. Let them, deliver alcohol and let restaurants do that. Now, they did do a lot of regulating, but they are like, we need to deregulate this to get the economy going. Imagine how much better our lives would be if it was always deregulated, if that's the healthy thing to do to get us out of bad things.
Just for clarification, you're saying libertarians believe that government should not be involved.
Yeah, the government should not be involved.
Okay.
And they say often what I see is that they've never had someone knowledgeable next to them to answer these questions that are actually very simple. I don't think there's anything complicated about the libertarian answers, but it's just maybe not what we prefer. Let's put it this way. Yes, sometimes it is, Kyle. I'm going to give you an example. Roads.
I'll slightly disagree with you there.
Okay. Roads. They'll say, how would we have roads without the federal government? And, it's a really simple answer. We had roads before income tax in the first place. There were roads everywhere and people got around. Now, where I live, I bet if I wasn't taxed for the roads, I'd probably live on a dirt road. And it might be a gravel road. But I bet people, because there's a lot of money here, there are $1 million homes around my house. I sure don't live in $1 million home, but it's lake access on the other road. And I bet we could get together and pay for that road ourselves and things like that. But a lot of places would still have a road, but maybe it's not a dirt road, but maybe it'll be a dirt road or something. And because they don't need a fancy road where they live. Does that make sense? You don't need the government builds beautiful bridges because it makes the government look successful. And now they start looking for places to build these bridges, even though there's no need for the bridges. I just quoted Hazlitt, so you can't argue with me on that.
About beautiful bridges?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't always think that they're beautiful.
Well, no, the government does typically suck at building everything. But his example in his book, Economics in One Lesson, is that he says that, the government starts, to provide jobs too. The government starts wasting public funds and building things that we don't need to be built.
I guess you said, I think that if you take one issue, it can be relatively simple to go try and explain it. But I don't know if it's necessarily my job to try and explain it. And that looks like I'm a little choppy on the video. What are you guys hearing me okay?
We're hearing you okay.
Okay. So another example is you're going, hey, you might not want a dirt road, but you live next to millionaires. They might want dirt roads. Another thing is HEB is going to want some roads to get to their store, and so is Chevron, and so is all these places. So there is places for roads to be built. But the expertise is not in you or me or DJ coming up with these answers. The expertise is in all of us, right?
Yes.
DJ is actually well equipped to determine how to provide end-of-life care. I say well equipped. Obviously, you are being trained on that, but you knew some stuff for the last 2 years that you've been doing that, and now you're learning more. So that's your specialty. Like, you're gonna build up your knowledge in that. And Derek, you know how to do some woodworking, right? And music. I mean, you have a specialty in that. I was trained in the law, right? So we all have our different specialties, and then but it doesn't necessarily have to be like, I went to school to be a lawyer. DJ, you went to school to be a pastor. Derek, you didn't graduate.
Wow.
Hey, there's room for a lawyer joke here.
Yeah.
At least I didn't become a lawyer.
Yeah, exactly.
A liar.
Liar. It's not that there's always an answer. It's that it's the way that God created people to actually work together.
I agree.
Voluntary, and people would work together to get something to happen. And there's different incentives in place that are there, but it's not always as easy, because there's different things that might cause the price of a road to increase because tar is not available, or however it is you build roads these days.
Well, schooling is a better example. People say how all these people would not be educated without public schools. But a lot of the times what it really comes down to, now I'm making an exception for, I'm generalizing, so don't jump on me for that. A lot of people don't want to take the responsibility of raising and schooling their own kids. And historically, that's what it was, is that we raised and schooled our own kids. But remember, Kyle, it takes a village, and people had better communities, and they provided with each other, and they would bring, oh, wow, we need to teach our kids skills, basic woodworking. And I would volunteer my time to go teach them once a week for a semester woodworking, because I cared about the kids.
Well, and people were they estimate that during the time of the revolution, or maybe shortly thereafter, that they estimate that the literacy rate was around 90%. And we didn't have it back then. So, and everyone's level of reading doesn't have to be the same either. I mean, it's great if somebody is able to continue to build up their ability to do that, but people would use it differently. Another thing is we are on a system built on a system built on a system. So you'd have to roll some things back. You couldn't necessarily, I mean, they did it, but everyone also was out of jobs too. You couldn't just say there's no more public schools, because people use that for the first few years of their kids' lives, once they're in school, as babysitters, right? Until the kids are old enough to be at home. And so and I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I'm just saying that's just a function of how life is now. It's kind of like a function of our credit. I deal with people with bad credit all the time, and why they have to take bad loans, and they just dig themselves into this hole. It's partly based off of the terrible financial system that we have set up on the Federal Reserve. I'm not trying to pivot to that. I'm just trying to point out that sometimes it's outside things that, yes, you can explain, like private schooling, whether at home or not funded by the government, is possible individually, but why, when you just try and go shove it into a place, why it would really dramatically affect our society as it is right now, even if it is not the best option.
Yeah, we can't magically change the culture overnight and the norms that we're used to. I'm excited for when Hazel gets to go to preschool or whatever, and I don't have to pay daycare anymore, just to be clear.
I have a question. Okay, I'm not very politically sound. I prefer the topics on theology, so I'm a little bit more ignorant. How do you feel about the federal law compelling, like General Motors, for example, to make ventilators? Isn't that stepping in? How do you feel about that?
I hate it.
Yeah, I don't think that they. I think that was unconstitutional. I don't think they had the right to do it, and it's a taking, which is in violation of the takings clause in the Bill of Rights. So
to answer your question a little more, DJ, when how much I hate it. You're just asking me how I feel, but let me just give you logical reasons for why it's bad. So we haven't actually had a respirator shortage in many places. So the market hasn't said make more respirators. The government comes in and tells a business to make respirators that for an item that's not needed. Like we're making these for no reason. And the government looks compassionate when it does that, and it gets politicians reelected because they say he handled that crisis very well.
But say there was a shortage, then it would look good that they were prepared.
Well, I guess. I think the market would provide.
Yeah. Here's the thing is, it's really, I'm not one to guess on what's going to happen. It's really going to have to be, we're going to look at pour through some numbers to see what actually happened during this time, what respirators were needed and how much they helped, how many masks were needed and how much they helped. how many people died, and how many of those could have been prevented. How many people actually got infected, and how much does social distancing or lockdowns or shutdowns actually prevent that. But and the good thing is there's other countries, Taiwan handled it differently, Japan handled it differently, North Korea, South Korea handled it differently. North Korea handled it differently too, Sweden differently. So it will just be interesting to pour through those numbers and go, what happened, right? Obviously, even Idaho is still handling it differently than New York is, even though they still did the shutdown. And there's some states that didn't fully shut down, like ours.
South Carolina, and apparently they threw the governor of South Carolina a parade, and hailing her as a hero for never shutting down anything.
I love it. They threw a parade. That's so good. It's like,
I hate parades. Parades are on my axis of evil. I have my own axis of evil, Kyle, if you didn't know. It's parades, and I think the other one's Pepsi.
How about fun?
I don't.
You just hate fun?
No, I love fun. That's why I have an axis of evil, to protect my fun. Parades aren't fun.
Parades. Pepsi, I'm not.
It's been a while. It's been a long time. It's parades and Pepsi. It wasn't the 3 Ps. There was something else, and it wasn't a P.
Pepperoni?
I had a vendetta against somebody, and I had a rule that other people were like, well, I'm going to have a vendetta against you. And I was like, well, you have to have 3 things to have a vendetta against somebody. I made it up.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the movie, V for Vendetta, since we're wrapping up here.
That was a long time ago I saw that.
Okay, yeah, we didn't prepare for this. Kyle loves the movie.
Yeah, good.
So I watched it for the first time a couple weeks ago, and man, it was eerie. It was creepy. I didn't like it. I love the movie, but watching it in COVID for the first time, because they're still in quarantine, but there's no one sick and things. It was kind of terrifying, and it kind of, people use historically a crisis to do drastic things that don't make sense. That's what the government does, and they use people's fear to do things they would never get away with before. And because if 9/11 happens and the support to invade the Middle East was pretty high, but we had already had issues before and in the Middle East, but no one wanted to invade it that bad. The public opinion didn't support it, and the government wanted to invade, but public opinion didn't. So how do you think public opinion affects the government in making their decisions, especially because I think a lot of these governors are virtue signaling, and because in these states are acting like they have too much power, way more power than they actually have. Governors that think, well, let's say they can go to the nail salon, but you can't, that type of thing going on.
I think that public opinion plays a huge part. I think price gouging, that was the worst part, was how people reacted, hatefully to people that were, trying to make a profit, and it was like mob mentality.
Well, and I think that, somebody going to a nail salon after they say don't go to a nail salon, that obviously looks bad, but they wouldn't be able to do a lot of the stuff that they're doing if people were not willing to comply with it.
I guess so. I think we live in an interesting time that we already have it so good that we'll put up with a lot of tyranny. We'll put up. Does that make sense? Because we started a revolutionary war over a 3% tea tax, and now we get taxed, out the wazoo, and we don't care. And the Revolutionary War, maybe this is wrong, I read it on the internet, I didn't fact check it, was fought during a pandemic. Am I right? Am I wrong?
They had pandemics back then all the time, though.
But
there was a fever that would come through these big cities, and people would oftentimes go out to the country to try and avoid it.
Yeah, I just think we have it so good that we'll deal with a lot of tyranny, because as long as I can, man, I just read 1984 too. As long as I have my gin, my victory gin, I'm okay. And he had talked about other things that they use to sedate the public from wanting to revolt. But I don't think the government's using things like Netflix. Imagine being locked at having a pandemic without streaming.
Tiger King.
Having a pandemic without Tiger King, that would be a nightmare. I don't know if I could do it. Then I'd start revolt. I get bored and I'd start revolting.
I think about it in when I was a kid growing up, we had TV and we had the three basic channels, and then Fox was added when I was a little bit older. And so it depends, because in my neighborhood, if like we all still got to go outside and play, and we had a kind of a big cul-de-sac and stuff, and we played at least with each other within the neighborhood, we might have been able to last longer. But we didn't. I mean, I have a video game system until later, so I think that it all kind of depends on. I think that streaming really did help really people to just be catatonic and go, all right, next.
So I have one last thing. We'll close on this. I have an analogy that I've been kind of thinking of, and I'm not sure if it's worked out, and Kyle's probably going to tear me apart for it. So here it is they say, I don't think it's right. This is my opinion. I don't think it's right to force other people to lose their jobs because other people are at a high risk for a disease that's going around. I think we constantly live in that state anyways, is my point. So my livelihood is always like, it's a necessity. So I'm going to risk things in order to get money so I can live. And if I'm going to be humane, let's look at how many car wrecks happen and how many people die on the road and how dangerous it is. Man, I probably shouldn't drive to work, and
heart disease, that's still the number one killer.
Well, hold on. So we'll stick with traffic, because I need to make a decision to not
that heart disease kills 10 times more people than traffic, but go ahead.
It doesn't fit my analogy. So I can't make a decision to not get heart disease. Or I can't, it didn't fit. So I make the decision to not drive because other people could die if I go drive? I could cause a wreck that caused a pileup and a lot of people die. Or do I risk it every day? And the people who are bad drivers, or let's use the elderly, and that can't drive for themselves or whatever, they stay off the road. They choose not to drive. They have someone drive for them, and they, quarantine themselves. And I choose to risk my life to go do that, to provide for my family. I do that every day.
Well, I think the problem, I think it's good analogy, and I know where it's coming from. But I think the main thing is we didn't know that much about what was taking place, the disease. I mean, just yesterday, they came out with like 6 more symptoms of COVID. Now, we were looking at 3 symptoms in the healthcare industry about COVID. We were looking for shortness of breath, coughing, and fever. And now they've added chills and some other symptoms that we look for.
Well, I don't like making rash decisions on things, on unknowns.
But now I agree with you.
You wouldn't agree to it at one point, is what you're saying?
Well, no, for a week, maybe a week, 2. So we could, because if it was really bad and people were like dying, everybody was dying that got contact. I think the free market would have provided.
So if we're concerned about the elderly, it should be their right to decide to stay home. If I'm not at risk, if I get COVID to die, I need to also be conscious of elderly and not go visit my grandparents. And if my company, so I go work for a law firm in San Antonio, and we start deciding, okay, this is getting serious. Let's operate on a skeleton crew and wear face mask at work and things like this instead of shutting down the entire economy. Because I think, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
I get you, but like in San Antonio, Southeast nursing home. I don't know if you saw that on the news or not. We follow it because of the hospice industry. I mean, that was half the deaths in San Antonio was from that nursing home.
well,
That had the, you know, and so my point is that there was just a bunch of unknowns. We didn't know a lot about it. I agree with you now. In fact, this Friday here in Texas, I mean, things are supposed to start opening up again, and I think churches are one of those that are allowed to start meeting.
we're going to meet pretty soon, and I'm kind of excited about some of the stuff we're going to be doing. It actually pushes a lot of my agenda.
I'm kind of apprehensive, to be honest.
I'm selfishly excited about the way we're opening up. I don't want to say anything too much, you know. I would probably wouldn't tell y'all privately because we don't know if anything's for sure. But I think yeah, well, it's going to be nice to just go back to a little bit of normalcy, even if church looks different for a while. You know, we're not going to have childcare. Oh, sorry, Kyle, we're not going to have childcare for a while, and that might, you know, less people will be going to church. It'll be a little safer.
My son is, my oldest is 9. He likes to sit in and actually listen to the sermons now, and you know, I teach Sunday school, so. Or I sure. I think that it still goes back to I will be interested in looking at all the statistics that come out about because I think it's a little bit of a false dichotomy, but it's like the economy or death. And then the types of deaths that people talk about that increase during a depressed economy is suicide from depression and drug use. So those are interesting because those are intentional, right? Somebody's intending to kill themselves or intending to use drugs that causes an overdose. There's going to be some increases in deaths from things that we might not be thinking about as well, right? Somebody might need medical attention for some other reason that they just don't go and get it, and they could die from that. Maybe somebody doesn't go in for a regular checkup, and cancer doesn't get screened or seen as early as it might have been, and so it becomes less able to be detected. You know, whether it's, you know, somebody has breast cancer and it spreads to the lungs, or somebody has other types of cancers that are relatively treatable right at the beginning, that you can really minimize the chance of death, but because you can't make it to a doctor, you don't get those types of treatments. It will be interesting to see and I don't know if you'll be able to quantify the increases. I think
so. Kyle, I think I know the solution. It's been in my face this entire time. If we just had a robust public health care system, then none of this would have happened. Universal health care. But if we call it a robust universal health care, then it would have been all okay.
Well, and the reason that universal health care doesn't work is not because, it is also because, but the government cannot anticipate the needs of everybody, right? That's why they can't plan for that, right? So for example, when Russia was trying to price wheat to sell it to their own people, they had to look across the world market to at least kind of get an idea of what the price is, because they just can't set a price for it. And so if you have socialized medicine, it is very, very difficult to set a price because you have experts saying, no, this is what's important and this is what's needed. And so they might focus their energies on that without focusing their energies on something else that is actually more needed. In that, if you had a private industry, then you have one company that goes, I think that they're missing this, and I'm going to go, I'm going to create masks because I think that that's what's necessary. And somebody go, well, I'm going to create ventilators because I think that's what's necessary. And these things would be in place and not be restricted if we had, obviously, a hands-off and not the socialized medicine that you are so eagerly seeking, Derek.
It was just right in front of me.
I lived in Canada for 7 years. I didn't mind it.
DJ, we're going to have to bring up universal health care on a different day. I don't have time to argue with you on that now. We'll talk about DJ's experience with Canadian health care. It made him more polite, is what I hear. But all right.
Sorry if I came across a little bit up front today. Sorry.
I think you just I heard a Canadian accent right there. He didn't just say sorry. He had sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's all we have time for today. That is the Libertarian. I've been thinking about it. Libertarian Solutions to Pandemic Problems. That just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Any last input from y'all two? Nothing from Kyle?
You guys like?
What was that? See you
You
guys
guys-
later?
I'm glad you guys had a good conversation. I like listening in.
I think you had enough input. We'll have
Just
one
personal
without Kyle.
questions.
We'll have one without Kyle. He kind of brings things down. He knows too much. He makes me. He pushes back against me, and I need to put him in his place. And the ratings came in, and Kyle's not going to be back for another.
But you all agree on everything.
Well,
No, we don't. If I go back and listen to this, lots of times, except for when I said I'm playing devil's advocate here, I was pushing back on some of the assumptions that he was making. I might agree with the final argument that he was making, the final portion of it, but as he's making it along, I like to make sure that all the points that he's making to build up to the final conclusion are there, and I think that in your analogies it was lacking.
I think we all agree that on that, less government intervention is better.
Yeah, I don't think the government should exist, but
yeah, I'm not that extreme.
We're at different
less
levels.
government intervention is better. That's why I stated it that way.
All right, so that is our show for today. If you can do us a huge favor and squish that like button, or don't, switch the down thumbs button and comment something. DJ says be nice.
Gentle tap.
A gentle tap on the like button. If you want to comment something and it's not nice, I don't care. It benefits us either way. It gets us in that YouTube algorithm. And give us a review. Actually, that helps a lot. If you could give us a review on whatever you're listening to, Spotify or Apple, podcasts, that'd be great. And subscribe to whatever you're listening to also. And so thank you all for listening. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas.